I think that, it's okay if the rich get stolen from here and there. Now, I don't want to say steal as a general principle, because then people are going to go around stealing from people who really do need to feed themselves.
Who determines who needs it?
What's that?
Who determines who needs it?
In this video, Cliff debates a seeking theist and a biology major on whether there is a God who decides moral absolutes. Whose side made the stronger point? Leave your comments down below.
However, I don't believe that he mirrors any of the major religions' conceptions.
Okay, fair enough. So you're not atheist, you're not even agnostic.
Right.
You're a theist.
Yeah.
You believe that some type of God or gods exist.
Mhm.
Okay, now, who is this God like? Or what is this God like? Or how do you gain information about what this God is like?
Well, I personally have my own hunches and intuitions, but my more significant sense says it doesn't matter. I think that moral relativism is not mutually exclusive with faith. There is moral absolutism that is inherent within the physical world. You said it yourself when you discussed your central nervous system and the pleasure that it seeks.
Yes.
Really, a moral absolutist approach is, I'm going to act in such a way that as best as possible maximizes the sensations on as many central nervous systems as possible. I do not need a God as part of my conception of religion to acknowledge that when I'm going to, if I'm going to beat a child, that I am drawing pain upon their, central nervous system. I realize, I don't need a God. I don't need a threat of looming punishment to recognize that if my goal is to maximize earthly existence, to, I guess you could, what you call maximizing pleasure in my central nervous system, I don't need, what I'm saying, humans don't need God in order to make that leap. The leap is not from earth to heaven. The leap is from earth to earth.
Okay, but the only way that a human being can have dignity innately is if they've been created for a purpose. Because if they've not been created for a purpose, if our number simply came up in a Monte Carlo game by accident, then to argue that we have innate dignity is a joke.
I disagree, because let's say, you win the lottery. Lots of people who win the lottery are going to say, okay, I'm going to buy myself a car, I'm going to buy myself a house in Tahiti. Whereas some people might, and they're going to become frivolous with the money and basically disengage themselves with the value because it is immediately accessible to them. That they say, because I didn't work for this money, I can spend it frivolously and not think twice about it. But the fact is, there is a value associated with that money. That money can draw up, can bring about a certain amount of good. You can actually sustain yourself and your family for however much time. That basically, even if our number did come up in a Monte Carlo game, and this is how it is, that's not mutually exclusive with us living morally.
All right, what do you have to say to me? Stealing your money will help me a lot, because I need some money to go on my next vacation. Therefore, I'm going to steal your money because it's going to maximize my pleasure. What do you have to say to me?
Well, if I were the type of person who had enough money that I would not notice the difference, that the difference would not really damage my central nervous system, then in principle, no, there's really not so much of a problem with that. I think that, it's okay if the rich get stolen from here and there. Now, I don't want to say steal as a general principle, because then people are going to go around stealing from people who really do need to feed themselves.
Who determines who needs it?
What's that?
Who determines who needs it?
Well, I think that you can determine whether or not you need it.
Okay,
I think that you
well,
can tell the difference between a starving person
I
and a
need
well-fed
money
person.
more than you do. Alright. Seriously, I just lost my keys. I need $125.
I don't have $125, but I got $5 and I got $6.
There's a 10 right there, too.
I don't want to keep my $2.
I'm saying that you cannot define the line. I'm saying that you cannot define the line with your religion and your God. I just don't think you're all asking to draw a line, and I don't see where.
Okay, so you're a moral relativist.
I don't know. I suppose so. I think that what I was thinking earlier while you guys were talking about that is that you're right. I don't think that moral relativism on the extreme can work, but I also don't believe that moral extremism can work. You cannot have a set of morals.
That's
because
right.
you won't. How can you have a set of morals?
I think you just put your finger on the real issue for the majority of my moral relativist friends. You're scared that if there are some moral absolutes, it's going to mean that some right-wing fundamentalist Christian group is going to try and legislate their morality in the United States.
Okay.
And you're scared spitless of seeing that happen. Well, guess what? So am I. But just because you and I are scared spitless of some right-wing, hyper-conservative, fundamentalist Christian group legislating all of their morality all over us, that does not mean that we are justified rationally in flipping off to the other side of the spectrum and saying, it's all relative. No. Come on, guys. Use the conscience, the rational mind God has given you. Realize that there aren't a lot of moral absolutes, but there are at least a few.
Okay, who defines those?
Exactly. Now, I'm not going to get specific and tell you what they are.
Okay.
But what I heard you just say to me is, fine. That was the first word you said. Now, when you told me fine, what that communicates to me is, yeah, Cliff, I think there are a few, maybe not many, but a few moral absolutes. We know that there are some moral absolutes, which means there's got to be some mind prior to the human mind that creates and defines these moral absolutes.
Okay, well, this goes back to your monkey discussion with him, where you said that the reason that, I guess you could call it mind worshippers or self-worshippers or whatever,
Yes.
and I think I fall under that category for what it's worth. The reason that the mind cannot be worshipped is because it cannot possibly encompass our universe, our creation, everything. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
That's part of it.
Okay, well, show me that God is more than the creation of the human mind.
You bet.
Okay, this is great.
One of the reasons that I'm convinced that you have a rational mind is because of how well you articulate. I've never seen your mind, I've never smelled your mind, I've never put your mind in a test tube. But I am convinced that between your two beautiful ears lies a rational mind. Why? Because the evidence of your articulate speech points me to a rational mind.
Okay.
In the same way, I've never seen God, smelled God, or put God in a test tube. But the order and design of the human eye, central nervous system, quote, laws of nature, the fact that if our Earth was a little closer to the sun, we'd all fry. If our Earth was a little further from the sun, we'd all freeze. The evidence of the amount of information in a single cell's DNA, which exceeds the amount of information in 3 sets of the 30-volume Encyclopedia Britannica. That kind of densely packed information demands some type of creator, some type of mind.
Okay, well, in response to that, I say, first of all, that in my personal case, science is the answer to that. And using yourself for an example, using the DNA for an example.
You know?
You said DNA has all, that's absolutely true. But the fact is that of our DNA, 2%, 3% of it is valid and used. The rest of it has been discarded through evolution. Sorry, like, I'm a biology major.
Yeah, so what?
So it's not all valid information.
But the amount of information that is there in DNA.
Okay, but it's
It's
been developed
incredible.
through a process. So it can be explained.
The fact that
Wait a second.
Yeah, the fact the process.
The process, yes, agreed upon. But then the question is it more plausible to believe that behind that process of such densely packed information, there's an intelligent mind? Or is it more plausible to believe that that kind of communication comes about with no intelligent mind?
So you're going for just simplest explanation.
I'm going for the explanation that is most plausible in light of the evidence. Give me a quick illustration. You and I are walking down the beach. We're walking down the beach, and we see ripples in the sand. And we say, there, look what the waves did. But if you and I are walking down the beach and we come across, John loves Mary, we don't conclude, wow, look what the ocean did, the waves. Why? That kind of cogent information demands an intelligent mind.
See, I don't see where God has gone one step further. I don't see where the consciousness has been demonstrated. And maybe that sounds ridiculous because of the formation of human intelligence and whatever intelligence. But I don't see that our intelligence is such a great step ahead of everything else that's being created. And I don't see that creation is such a great step ahead of what science can predict.
Okay, good. My brother's a transplant surgeon at University of Wisconsin. The amount of study that he's had to go through to be a transplant surgeon, the amount of study he's had to do to learn how to transplant kidneys and livers, the amount of study he's having to do on the human body to learn genetically how to help the human body not reject the new organ, points to a level of intricacy in the human body that's amazing. Now, is it more plausible to say that kind of order and design is a result of chance? Or is it more plausible to say that kind of order and design comes from some type of intelligent mind?